Now we're live, and I don't know what everyone's going to see yet, if there's any lag, so I'm just going to talk my way through it. We should be going live on LinkedIn, Facebook. I think I've got it on my X account, and this is going live on YouTube. So I'm going to see what we have. Welcome, everyone. So we've got the comments going on. Can't put message. Some channels learn more. Okay, I think we're going live on YouTube. Let's see. All right, linked test comment. All right, just sent a message on the LinkedIn channel. Let's see what we got going on there. Okay, good. From our point of view, from what I have to do as the moderator, I think everything comes through for messages. So I think we're good. I don't think there's going to be that much of a lag. All right, we got Malcolm. Where is everyone tuning in from? So let's see if that propagates.
Yep, I can see it.
We see it on our side, but I don't know if we see it on the LinkedIn side.
No, but YouTube is coming through.
Yeah. So if you're wherever you're watching this, if you just want to send a message, if you're an affiliate marketer or an affiliate program or affiliate manager, what do you do and which company you're with? And yeah, if you don't mind, just tell us where you're watching in from this webinar from. And I think since we are started already, we might as well jump into it. So I think it's advised to, let's start with ourselves. So Joe, tell us about yourself, what your experience is, and why are you qualified to tell us about dynamic variables today?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Joe Hatch. I'm the head of product here at StatsDrone. I've been working in the industry for the last 7 years, mostly on the affiliate side. So basically the tips and tricks that I've picked up over my career as a product person in affiliation for gambling is what we're now going to showcase.
And which companies were you with before?
So I've worked with Katina Media, Rig Tech, and more recently Sigma Play.
And then I'll do a quick intro to myself. I've been in iGaming for over 20 years. I've been an affiliate manager, VIP manager. I've been a professional gambler. I've been building affiliate sites for 13 years. And with StatsDrone, I felt there's a lot of things not being solved in affiliate marketing. So my background's engineering. So here we are. And then let's see. Just a quick question for everyone that's listening. If you are an affiliate who's got experience with dynamic variables or postbacks, so if you want to leave a comment there, I'm just kind of curious to see who's got what experience. And while that's running in the background, I think maybe it's best to pass it back to you, Joe, and maybe we can get started with the first part of the presentation. Tell us, like, from a high level, like what are we dealing with? How can people set things up with dynamic variables? What's the power behind it or the reason? And then maybe what we can do is, of course, go right into that live demo to show how you built this affiliate site for a slots portal and show us what's possible with dynamic variables.
Sounds good. Should we jump over to the presentation?
Let's do it.
Let me pull that up. You should be seeing my screen.
I'm just going to add this here.
Amazing. Perfect. So yes, thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm about to go over some of what John has just mentioned in terms of dynamic variables, what they are and how they work. So at a very high level, before we dive in, what we'll be covering is an introduction to who we are at StatsDrone, for those who don't know, and who this session is aimed at. We'll break down why basic tracking isn't enough for affiliates and the gaps in the data that they often face. From there, we'll do a very quick introduction to dynamic variables and the live demonstration to see them in action. Then we'll wrap everything up with a question and answer session. So any questions you might have, feel free to drop them wherever you're watching from. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a better understanding of what dynamic variables are, how they work, and how you can use them to make data-driven decisions for your business. So for those of you that don't know us, we are StatsDrone. It's a platform designed to help affiliates consolidate their data from all of their affiliate programs into one place. So instead of logging in manually to multiple programs, dashboards, juggling different spreadsheets, We automate this process and give you a centralized view of your performance across your accounts, your brands, your campaigns, and hopefully after this, your variables. My name is Joe Hatch. I'm the head of product. As I said, I've been in the industry for 7 years as an affiliate. So happy to share what we've been working on and hopefully improve tracking, get a better understanding of data, identify areas of revenue leak, and optimize campaigns for your actionable insights. So who is this webinar for? This specific session, we're going to be looking at a casino slot affiliate website, but the insights that we share today can be applied to any type of affiliate. It's designed for people that want to take their tracking and their attribution to the next level. So if you're a new or an experienced affiliate and you want to understand your data better, if you're a media buyer and you're looking to track and optimize your traffic sources, or an affiliate manager that wants to go beyond basic click and deposit tracking. So ultimately, anybody that's tired of guessing which offers, geos, or landing pages are driving profit. So regardless of if you are an SEO affiliate or a PPC affiliate, likely you're working with operators, their brands, their campaigns, and their offers. You have traffic and you are sending it to the operator's landing page, usually with a tracking link that they have provided. Now, you can see when players sign up and when they deposit using that tracking link, but you do miss key insights that can help you improve your positioning and better understand what is working and maybe what isn't working. You can see what is happening, but not why it's happening. So you're not able to see which traffic sources are bringing in your high value players. You're not able to see which landing pages are converting or which offer types are driving the most deposits. And that's the problem with basic tracking. It tells you part of the story, what is happening, but it doesn't provide the context behind it, why it's happening. So without that context, there are gaps in the data. And this is challenges that affiliates face every single day when it comes to understanding their performance. You might see a campaign that is generating a really strong revenue share, but is it really performing well? Or is it just one high roller that's making the numbers look good? You can see deposits that are coming in, but do you know which traffic sources are responsible for those long-term and high-value players? And maybe as a PPC affiliate, your ROI on your paid media, is it actually what you think it is? So without deeper insights, you're making those decisions on incomplete data and potentially missing opportunities for increasing revenue or maybe cutting back on underperforming campaigns. So these are the common challenges affiliates face. Your traffic value is unclear where the best players are coming from. Your campaigns, your offers are not always optimized. Are you promoting the right offers to the right audience? And ultimately incomplete data leading to wrong decisions. So you might be scaling or investing in the wrong campaigns or channels without realizing it. So at the end of the day, understanding your data and your audience is the key to uncovering these hidden revenue leak areas and finding optimization opportunities. So if you're a data-driven affiliate, you want to close these gaps in your data, you would have to create multiple tracking links per campaign. You'd have to manage them on your website, and you would have to track all of that independently from each other by creating one tracking link for every single action that you want to analyze. The problem with that, obviously, is it becomes very quickly overwhelming, having to manage and create separate links for every landing page, traffic source, ad campaign, every variation that you want to track. And that's not efficient and it's not scalable. That's where dynamic variables come into play. So by using dynamic variables, you can add context to every click without the need to create multiple tracking links. So instead of managing dozens of different campaign links, you can use a single link and append variables, which are small pieces of data to the same link. And you can give every click context. Instead of just guessing, you're able to see the players that have signed up and deposited with the page that they came from, the button or the placement that drove the conversion, which offer types are appealing, where the users are coming from, and much more. This means you can track at a granular level and optimize what is working and make those data-driven decisions without creating endless tracking links. What does that look like? So on the screen now, you should be seeing an example of a basic tracking link at the top. So this is a standard link provided by an affiliate program. It simply identifies you as an affiliate and the offer. Underneath, we've got a dynamic variables link, which is that same tracking link, and these variables that are appended. So here you can see there's a timestamp and a click ID. This timestamp is epoch time that can be converted into a human readable date to the minute and second of the user, as well as a session-based click ID. Now, the session-based click ID is important because this would also allow you to see if that same user has signed up for multiple offers on your product. You can also see the converting page. So here it's the home page, the user geo, which is MT, Malta, where I'm based, and the device type desktop. So you're able to see where the user's coming from, which page converted, and what device they were using. Maybe mobile users deposit more money, let's say. So these are all altered dynamically based on your website. So you can use placeholder values, and this same link can be applied globally on your site and giving you that additional context. The question most people want to know, how can I add them to the site? This all sounds very good and very nice. It's not a straightforward answer. There are many different ways that you can append these parameters to your tracking, and it mostly depends on your current setup and tech stack and how you're working. There's many WordPress plugins like Pretty Links and Thirsty affiliates that allow you to use redirections. They can be used with JavaScript and with Tag Manager to swap any placeholders for real data. And then you've even got off-the-shelf tools like Volume, Kitero, and Rebrandly that are able to generate things like click IDs and parameters for you and pass them over. So the demo that I'm about to show you, we're using WordPress with Pretty Links and Google Tag Manager. The idea is quite straightforward. You take your existing tracking links, append your placeholder values, your variable values, and then Google Tag Manager will swap them out for real data based on the session for the user.
And do we have any questions so far? So if you've got anything that you can think of, just throw it in the chat and I'll do my best to just kind of pick some of them that come through. And if everyone's shy, don't worry about it. We've got more questions. So I've got plenty to ask Joe myself as someone who's been very interested in seeing this go live to the market and just kind of listening to what are the different needs affiliates have, like what are the different examples of how we can use these power tools.
I guess we'll give that some time for questions to come in. In the meantime, I'll jump into the live demo.
Let's do that. And if there's, like I said, if people are shy, I've already got 5 questions that I've just written up while you were talking.
Amazing. All right. So in terms of live demo, obviously nothing ever goes wrong with live demos. So
no, not at all.
Fingers crossed. This is a WordPress website. I've set this up with demo content just purely to demonstrate the power of dynamic variables. This is using Mercury theme, Slots Launch for game demos, Google Tag Manager, and Cloudflare. So here it would be simulating your traditional product, right? You have your home page, you have your top list, you have a comparison page, maybe a game demo, game library. So what we would do is obviously put our Go links, our Pretty Links onto the website, and we're going to send the user via that Go link, from that go-to link, HeySpin Casino, and we're going to send them to the operator page. Now, where we've added these additional parameters, you can see here AFP. AFP is specifically for HeySpin Casino. They're using the Sell Expert software. There are different parameters that are used for different software, so it won't always be AFP equals. But we are breaking down this into a timestamp, a click ID for the session, the homepage, as I mentioned. So this Go link, go to HeySpin Casino, can be placed anywhere on the website. Maybe the user goes through and reads the review, and from the review page, they then click on that same go-to link, and you see here that we're actually picking up that they're coming from the Betting HeySpin Casino review page, or potentially even from a game demo. If we go to a game, we click the Play for Real Money button, that variable is being stored in the local session of the user, and it's being populated by the site on that click out to the operator site. So here we can see that this actually came from the game Big Bass Bonanza. So yeah, this would be specific to the user. Like I said, this is an epoch timestamp, so we can come on over to convert this into a human readable time. So this was about an hour ago when I loaded up the site before the webinar. You're able to get that down to the hour, minute, and second of the user. And the second part, which is the click ID, is session specific also. So if I was to then go to another offer and sign up, that click ID would be the same. So I can see that I've converted a Hayspin Casino and maybe many others on the website.
All right, we have a challenging question here, Joe. It's from Malin Canada, posting in from YouTube. They wanted to know for U.S. market, let's say for AFP2 equals whatever, can this be a state rather than a country level?
Absolutely, yes. So what we're tracking here is there's no set standard. It's purely defined on whichever variables that you are passing. So MT for Malta is being passed from Cloudflare. It can be pushed from whichever geo tools that you are using, whichever, maybe you're using a plugin, maybe you're using Cloudflare. If you're able to pass the state level, we're able to actually collect that and report on that. So it's only based and limited on what you are able to collect from your side and to pass over to the operator.
Okay. Would you say this is more a Google Tag Manager thing, or do you think Cloudflare is probably the best thing? Because I mean, most affiliate sites, like they're kind of using Cloudflare right off the bat anyway. So would Cloudflare make it easier to identify, like, not only is it statewide within America, let's say for Canada, you got the provinces, maybe in Germany, you've got like, different individual states. I'm assuming this is stuff you can get from Cloudflare. Is this mostly through the IP address?
Yeah, so this demo is actually only using Cloudflare and not Tag Manager specifically for the IPs. Tag Manager is used for other variables, but Cloudflare is what we're using for that country code, and that's the ISO code. So if you're talking at a state level, you would be able to use it's called the CF IP headers, the country Cloudflare country headers, and you should be able to pass a US and then ISO code for state. So it would be maybe US KT for Kentucky, let's say.
I've got a few more questions. I mean, one I've got is, remember that tool you had where you actually were tracing what was happening with the link? So as you clicked on the link, you made something like a pretty link where it's like visit Hayspin. Yeah, so this one, what is this tool? And my quick question is it easy to use this tool to know if other affiliates are also using dynamic variables?
Yeah, so this tool is called Redirect Path. It's a free Chrome extension. I'm actually using this to check when you click on something, what the number of redirections are in a chain, and also which values are being passed. So this is just very easy for me to see. This is the link that I clicked, go to Hayspin Casino. That was fine. There was a JavaScript redirect afterwards, and these were the variables passed. And I can also see that there were 2 additional hops on the operator side before I landed on Hayspin as a page. So these are the tracking parameters. So this tool is available on Chrome. I'm sure it's available on other platforms. It's free to use, and it's very good just to check that the journey is what you expect it to be.
Yeah. We have another question from Alexander. He asks, like, could you provide examples? So would you say that if you're spying on other affiliate sites to kind of know how they use dynamic variables, what are some of the other ways you see people using this? Like, I know one example is if you had an exclusive bonus, you can actually put a tracker on that. Is that right?
Yeah, so examples in terms of dynamic variables are very open. Examples of finding and identifying people that are using dynamic variables on their sites, again, it's simply going down to click the link and what does the browser tell you. So most of these are server-side redirects, or they are client-side redirects. With the client-side redirects, you're able to follow exactly what the browser is sending across between sessions. Server-side redirections are usually a bit trickier to track, but depending on the software of the platform, they are going to have these identifying features anyway. So we're sending, our client-side, browser-side information here with these query parameters. The website is then acknowledging AFP, click ID, referring page, user country anyway. So you would still be able to see that.
Makes sense. And one question I've got, which I kind of think I already know the answer to, if you are an affiliate and you have like a login system or you've got a newsletter, so you basically got first-party data, what does it look like to use first-party data? And like, would you take like a single click ID and say, I'm going to assign this to this one user because I already know that they're signed into our platform, and I want to know like, would you be able to track like their deposit activity, their revenue activity, and know if the player is actually churned?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I think there are two ways of answering this. So before I jump into the first party data, I think I'll show how these variables are reported inside StatsDrone. So we are aggregating this from the operator, the affiliate platform level. So for example, here, this is a click ID, there is an offer type, there is a user geo. We are collecting and aggregating these variables that are passed to the operator, and then we are able to come into StatsDrone and we can see, the clicks, the signups, the KPI metrics, the revenue data, CPA, rev share commissions, total commissions that are generated by that specific variable. The second part of that is first-party data. So yes, first-party data is absolutely super powerful. If you wanted to send, instead of a click ID, a user ID of you've identified a user, you have a database of people that are interacting with your forum or your user-generated content, you wouldn't have to generate a click ID from JavaScript or from Tag Manager. You would be able to pass through maybe the ID of the user or a hashed version of the email address, something that isn't personally identifying publicly, but then relates back to a system that you have in-house to identify them. So you would be able to see that information.
Okay. And I guess you could probably do this for even an affiliate network where you'd have one ID as your sub-affiliate. And then within the sub-affiliate, if they actually also had first-party data, then they could actually take a second variable and say, this is the variable I'm going to assign for the player ID. So I guess my next question is, you can choose what order you're going to use the variable. Like there's no rules here. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's limited purely by what you're technically able to collect and to pass. A good example of this would be, if we're an affiliate, we don't have first party data, we are generating a click ID when that action happens. We're sending that to the operator. The operators also have their own player account management. They can see who signed up. They have first party data, and then they would assign that to a click ID from us. Now, we don't actually have access to that information by them, but we would be able to match this action, this player is related to our click ID from the other side.
Okay. We have another question from Alexander, and he's asking, like, where's all the data collected? Is there a server DB? So I guess maybe it's kind of like a two-part question. It's like, how are we getting the data, and where's this data being stored, and what can affiliates do with this data? Like, we know the answer, they can export it. So maybe if you could just walk us through what this looks like.
Yeah, so obviously we're passing these parameters. They're being stored by the operator. I'm not sure how they store it. I guess they have their own processes. When it comes back to StatsDrone, we are purely, we're using the APIs or the credentials to log in and aggregate this data. So we're pulling that information from the operator as if we're a user. And it does get stored obviously in a database on our side. In terms of security, we do have, our cloud database for storage, but we also have self-hosted options. So in terms of where it's stored, the answer is it depends. But yeah, we would store it to display it in the reports. However, we wouldn't be able to see that as a customer. We can only see programs that you're connected to. We don't see any of your personal information.
Yeah. And then it goes without saying, I already know what I'm about to ask you, which is we've been working together. You've been building database services where it's like, how do we take the API and put it into another data warehouse? So I guess this can go into like what MySQL, it can go into what like a BigQuery, it can go into AWS. I guess it's kind of infinite, isn't it?
Yes. So yeah, another feature with StatsDrone is we do have an API. So our API allows you to take data from StatsDrone and put it into any of these tools. At the moment, we've got accounts, brands, campaigns, and dynamic variables endpoints. So everything that you see in this report, you would be able to query directly from an API. That API could then feed into BigQuery, Metabase, Looker Studio, any tools that you're using for your own data warehousing or data visualization.
Yeah. Okay. We have a few more questions, but Joe, was there more to share on the demo or?
In terms of the demo, there is one more page, which is, this is our internal spreadsheet of what is supported by which softwares. So StatsDrone, we primarily integrate at a software level. That's not to say that all brands are going to offer these features. And sometimes they do need to be requested by the affiliates via the affiliate managers. Now, We work at a software level, so as you can see, the coverage is quite good. It's getting better every day, and really the more that affiliates are asking to take control of their data and to have access to these reports, it really benefits us, one as affiliates, but two as an industry, to actually grow, make our data more accessible, and start making these decisions based on information. So not everyone does support this, and I think there's a question from Kim here, which is quite a nice segue into this. It's not supported globally. It is supported technically from a software level, but it may also be not supported at a brand level, depending on their data sharing policies.
Okay. And then I think Alexander had another question that was, let me just see. I'm doing a couple things at once. Is it possible to match the dynamic variables with the tracked affiliate programs in StatsDrone in one consolidated report? Which I think is sort of, you have that screen there. So technically it's a consolidated report, but would you say that this report is really best utilized to export it? Because we could be dealing with like what, 50,000 rows of data per day. Like this is an immense amount of data.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately the data that we store is hierarchical, right? So the hierarchy is account, brand, campaign, and then variables. So you may have one account, many brands within that account, many brands with many campaigns, and obviously dynamic variables are assigned to a specific campaign. So it's kind of one level deeper. But in terms of attributing that back, yeah, you can see here that you're able to see which brand, which account, and if it's available, which campaign that specific variable belongs to. So you have a drill down version and you have a top level consolidated version of all of your variables within a specific campaign, account, or brand.
Yeah. I'm just going to go deeper into Alexander's question and hijack the presentation. So I'm going to show this. It's kind of like our DataViz presentation. So Linda Salem is our head of BI, and she's building custom Tableau dashboards. So in this whole presentation, I'm not going to directly answer what dynamic variables looks like to visualize it in the table, but I'm just going to show you like a couple of the examples where, because dynamic variables are, like the name implies, it's dynamic, you could use it for so many different reasons. So it's not really easy for us to create a one-size-fits-all data viz or a one-size-fits-all report. So the way StatsDrone is being utilized today with our customers that do have dynamic variables is it matters how it's nice for them or what the data means to them. So for example, if you're an affiliate network and each of your variables is your affiliate, then you're going to have a separate report than someone else who's going to be, let's say, a slots affiliate, where you're basically tracking, where are my signups coming? Are they coming from game pages? So then you want to build a customized report that's based on the game pages. So we can basically build any custom dashboard. So either you on your team would have the ability to do this, or you can actually work with us and we can actually build some of these dashboards for you. And then if there's any more questions, keep them coming in the chat, because we actually have some really good ones. And I'm going to see what else I've got up for some of the things I do. Okay, I've got a challenging one, and I think this one might require a bit of work. Can you use dynamic variables to understand if a program is shaving your account? Not to say that we want to bring up a topic that's kind of like taboo, or we're talking about ethics, but people do care about their data. And it's like, is this one way of actually going, can I monitor what's going on behind the scenes?
It's a good question, and it's not a simple, straightforward one to answer. The nice answer is yes, it can be used to detect shaving. There are multiple ways of doing this, especially within the app. But ultimately, when you are tracking at a brand or a campaign level, most commonly you'll be tracking at a campaign level to see how well your campaign is performing. We're pulling and we're aggregating your number of clicks, signups, FTDs, your deposits, the cumulative amount of those deposits, as well as the number of deposits. Now, if you're assigning a click ID to each of these, you're effectively creating an independent tracker or an independent row of data. So you would be able to see historically, based on that click ID, what that performance is, what the average amount they are depositing is over time, and what their player behavior is. Now, if you suddenly see these numbers are dropping, that could be an indication that there is a change in the platform. Maybe they've stopped playing. You would also be able to see that, maybe your revenue share has just fallen to zero, where maybe their account was terminated, or on the flip side, maybe they were a high roller and they've been moved onto a different track and the different terms apply in certain, I've seen where you hit a high roller account and then all of a sudden they take them off your default commercial agreed upon deal and put them onto a separate high roller track, which has something like negative carryover. So you would be able to see changes in the behavior from that specific click level. In terms of more granular detail, again, you would then look into potentially the player engagement, which is completely another subject that we can talk for another hour on, I'm sure.
Yeah, we need a few months before we have the webinar on that. Now, I'm going to ask a question, which I think to me is kind of obvious, but would you say that you're able to directly understand your player values with dynamic variables? Because if you imagine that your clicks are like streams, where if the player clicks, you're monitoring their deposit activity, their revenue activity. You know if they're ever going to disappear, but more importantly, you know if they're going to be generating, let's say, 3K a month for you as a single player. You're going to see that over time. And I guess we know that player values aren't really linear. Like some programs could actually lose a payment processor. They could add game providers, which increase. They could lose markets. They could gain markets. So I think this is where you'd be able to see, like, maybe not real time, but close to it, like on a day by day, just understanding, like, what are my player values, or can I take one player out of it? Like you said, you got a high roller. That's going to skew your results. So you can't assume that all your players are worth, like, they've gone from $250 average to 500 because of a single player.
Yeah. You'd be able to see that from a click ID level. So if you're looking at that click ID and you see there is a high roller, you can run that same report again with maybe excluding that player and removing the outliers in the data, and then figuring out what your average cost per player is. Obviously, as you said, it's not linear. It varies widely, which is why the more variables that you're using, the better understanding that you can get of that data, because a click ID is good, but if you're also able to track at an offer level or a page level, you might have, different offerings on different pages. Maybe your high rollers are coming from best Bitcoin casinos or best online casinos or no deposit casinos. You're actually able to start understanding not just the value of the players, but the behavior and the patterns from your own product.
Okay. We've got another question from Ivan Leon. It says SMS or voice. So I'm assuming you can put any tracking link in an SMS message. What would that look like? Is that just kind of using like a tool like Volume or Kaitaro or anything? And you're basically saying, if I've got the mobile number here and I'm going to send them a message, you want to send them not just a generic tracking link where everyone can click on it, and you're going to lose visibility on it. So you'd send that one SMS only a unique identifier. So you basically put in your own database. You're like, I've got person number one. This is their phone number. This is the times I've sent messages, and they always have a click ID assigned to them. Is that correct?
Yeah. Obviously, with different channels, you would need to use different methods of assigning these variables. So if your PPC campaign is running, you would pass an ad ID. You would need to make sure that in AdWords, you are passing these variables. Or if you're, sending an SMS, you would need to make sure that you're pre-populating them before the SMS goes out, or having an identifier there, because that wouldn't be interacting directly with the site unless you were to set up a specific, this came from SMS. So there's many different ways of doing it. It just depends on what your setup is, how that looks, but you can track, multi-channel, omni-channel across, different methods.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question that I know in the past I've struggled with, which is, what is the difference between a postback and a dynamic variable? Like, how do they work? How are they different? Because everyone thinks that they're kind of like the same thing, but like, is one better than the other?
Sure. So actually postbacks and dynamic variables are similar, but they're not competing with each other. They can be complementary. Now, the best way to think of a postback is it's server to server. So it's basically a confirmation message that an action has taken place. So you would have to set up, let's say, a listener or a webhook listener or some way of receiving information from the operator side. And when a certain condition is true, maybe there's a sign up, a deposit, a first deposit, NGR change, that is then going to be sent back to your listener, and you would have to do something with that information. So they're going to tell you, hey, this action has happened. Here's the postback. We're going to tell you that it's happened, confirmation. Dynamic variables are more controlled by the affiliate and their site, so they're adding additional data. Now, you can, in some cases, send dynamic variables in the same postback confirmation, allowing for attribution. But yeah, they're kind of different purposes. Dynamic variables you set up once. Postbacks you would need to set up for every action, for every brand, maybe even at a campaign or promotional level. So the efforts are not the same, but they can work very well together.
Okay. And I think there might be a misconception that postbacks are real-time data. And I think with dynamic variables, the answer is not all is also real-time. But do you also think in, let's say, 1 to 2 years from now, we're going to experience more real-time data? And also in 1 to 2 years from now, do you think postbacks are going to maybe fade away just because I don't think they're scalable?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when we talk about real-time data, and I think another key difference between postbacks and dynamic variables is dynamic variables, we are going out and fetching the information that is available in the reports, and postbacks are sending that information back to us. And, when we talk about real-time data, it depends, because is real-time data really real-time? There are systems that stream data and they can send postbacks in real time, but from what I've seen, it's not usually real time. There's at least a buffer for those messages to be sent out and to be processed and to be confirmed. And it's not always reliable. The same way with dynamic variables, is it real time? Well, that's depending on how often that data is updated by the affiliate program, by the operator. So access to the data is not something that we directly control, but I do see us moving more towards real-time data and having these analysis. That's why typically PPC affiliates will use postbacks if they are tied into some kind of campaign monitoring, spend, and automations, but they're not truly real-time.
Okay. Are there any accuracy issues regarding postbacks for versus dynamic variables? It's because what I've heard from a lot of people is that sometimes postback can be when you have a depositing player, it can be 0 or it can be 1, which is correct, or it could be double or multiple. Like, how does this work?
Yes, big topic. I would love for some affiliate program platforms to come on and answer this as well. So there is no standard really when it comes to postbacks. I think everybody handles them in different ways. When the information is sent, it also depends on what the affiliate has configured. So you might have a global action. I want to be notified on any action, but you might have that across all of your brands and your campaigns. So now you might accidentally have double firing of a tag because you've set it up to be at account level, but also at a campaign level. And you're then receiving that same information twice in different contexts, one for the account, one for the campaign. There are also times where simply the postback hasn't fired. You haven't been notified of that action happening. So it's good to use both of them as complementary tools and to verify and validate that data and not just solely rely on what you're receiving.
Yeah. And if we have more questions, feel free to fire them in the chat. And while that's happening, I'm going to ask a couple more. How is StatsDrone accurate, and how does StatsDrone solve the accuracy issues of getting data from these affiliate programs?
Mm-hmm. I'm biased. I think we're very accurate. Big caveat there. Obviously, we do not see any of our customers' data, so we are accurate as much as we can be without seeing that data. Now, we're currently connecting to over 1,600 programs. We go at a software level, so it's around 90 different softwares that we integrate with. We're covering almost 5,000 brands, so there is absolutely a lack of standardization across those data points. But we're very quick to react. If a customer tells us that this information is not accurate, there could be a number of reasons for it. It might be that they're using the API and the reports have changed, or the API naming has changed, or it could be that they're using the scraping username and password credentials and they have access to a report that we previously haven't seen before. And the mapping of that data. Maybe one company uses FTD as the name, another uses first time deposits was the full name, another one uses NDCs. So how we stay accurate at StatsDrone is we've spent many years now building these API integrations and these scrapers. we work as a library of tools. So when a customer comes to us and says, hey, I'm not seeing what I'm expecting to see, our tech team usually jump in, investigate, make sure that the mapping is correct, find any areas that there are inconsistencies, and then they all get added back into the library. So we've got mapping of, hundreds of different naming conventions from loads of different tools that mean the same thing. So that's how we stay accurate, is just by being super responsive. Our tech team in Bulgaria are, they've done this for years. This is their bread and butter. They know the scrapers inside and out. So yeah, we're accurate. There are times where you might see something that you don't expect. In that case, we would just say, hey, tell us what you're seeing, share with us what you're expecting. Let's try and figure that out.
Yeah. And usually we always have an answer. So it's more like kind of work with us. Sometimes we need one-time access to that one account for testing. And basically it's kind of like we don't know what we don't know until we see it. So just to give you a couple of examples, sometimes an affiliate will actually have no negative carryover assigned on their account when the program has it by default. That would make the scraper or their API potentially not work. But once we know that, we're library based. So we add that to our system, and then the more customers we get, the more accurate we get. So we always have an answer for it. So like Joe said, we're both biased. So another question is, how can people get set up with StatsDrone with dynamic variables? So I already know the answer is we don't enable this by default. So if you need it, you have to come ask. But how can they get set up? And more importantly, like for anyone that might be intimidated by what they've just seen with the setup with Tag Manager, what are ways in which we can help people?
I think our support is very, very, helpful. We love to have these conversations. There's more than one way that this can be set up. Typically what that process looks like is somebody will say, hey, we love the idea, we don't know where to start. We'll just have a very high level introductory call, understand what your setup is, the tools that you're using, and we can guide you through that process of what it looks like, because the majority of this is done one time on the tech stack side, on the product side. And, we've been helping customers set this up since last summer, July of last year. So we've seen many different variations of this. And every time that we have these conversations, even we learn a bit more about the key of setting this up in a way that makes sense. So yeah, just reach out to us. We'll set up a discussion, and it will be tailored to each individual to make sure that it's right for them.
Yeah. And it goes without saying, I mean, there's so many different ways of managing your tracking links. Like we know there's a group of affiliates that don't use link redirects. Then there's ones that have WordPress, whether it's pretty links, thirsty affiliates, redirection. And then you've got more advanced tracking tools that have the click ID mechanism built in with, I think, the postback listener, if you want to also add postback. So that's talking about companies like Volume, Kaitero as a few examples. But for the most part, we don't have control over your tracking links. And we always believe affiliates should maintain control, but it's nice to have control on your side. And then most importantly, it's like at the end of the day, you just need to make sure that the click ID is passing through, you're getting all the data, and then you basically are dealing with rich insights, which I think are the things that you're able to go back and put an analyst hat on and go, how can I look at my data and find opportunities? Like, for example, I think another great example that's not utilized enough in affiliate marketing is not just newsletters, but understanding when your players are actually coming from a newsletter. So imagine you can go, which newsletter did the player come from and how much value is it? You want to know, it's like, what is my breakdown of player value? Newsletter, by homepage, by review page, even by blog post. Or if you have social channels or you're streaming at one time, it's like you can actually, like, let's take streaming, for example. How would you set up a dynamic variable tracking link for a streamer? Like, what would you do that would be different? Because you'd put your timestamp in there by default, so you'd actually know the time in which they came from. So if you're streaming at, let's say, this hour right now, you would know that the player actually came from that streaming link.
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, streaming is a tricky one for tracking because it relies on promo codes. Depending on the platform that you're streaming on, I would also use potentially one of these chat moderator bots that sends the link every now and then, or you can ask for more information that's going to send them across to the website. And obviously the website there does the heavy lifting. So if they're using the promo code, it's a bit trickier because they'll go directly to the operator site. But if you have an interim where they come to your page for for comparing it or for checking the offer, the website is going to handle that by default. So you can have the click ID, and you can even use the referring page to figure out what source it came from, or you can set up a specific link for that streamer, so when they came, what time, what stream, and things like that.
Okay, I think we've got one last question and then we'll wrap up. From Kimberly: when does StatsDrone finalize the monthly report, since different operators, they close monthly numbers sometimes on the 10th or the 8th of the month? If the historic numbers changes over the months, years in the affiliate system, does StatsDrone have a historic picture, so data for affiliates to review and compare with the platform? This is a pretty great loaded question.
No pressure. Thank you, Kim. Yeah, so the reality is we don't finalize data. We are simply fetching the data as it is in the platform. So what we do is we can set up to have a recurring daily automated sync. That means every day we're going to go to the platform and we're going to see what has changed and what is new. So the limitation there is obviously the data is only available when the operator has finalized it from their side. So if it's the 8th of the month and the data is still not there, we're going to check again on the 10th, the 9th, the 10th. And then when that data becomes available, we're going to see it inside of StatsDrone. Now, in terms of historic picture, do affiliates have that data to review and compare with the platform? Yes. How we currently work is when we connect our daily sync, we actually only go back for the previous 10 days. So it's a rolling window. We get the last 10 days of data to make sure that any changes, from last week or the last 10 days has been accurately reflected in the reports. Everything past that 10-day window is immutable in StatsDrone. It's not able to be changed or manipulated. It's simply a snapshot of your data as it was captured from the affiliate platform directly at the time it was crawled. So what does that mean? It means if the platform was then to go and retroactively adjust your data, you would see something different in the platform as you would in StatsDrone. So you are able to compare and see what has changed over time.
Yeah, and just maybe a quick comment on that. If you, let's say, run back your data and say, okay, we're in February and I want to recheck my stats for January. If you go to resync January, I think you're going to overwrite the previous data. Now, if you're using the API and you've got someone on your tech team that's able to do this magical work, then what you do is you download a copy of your January data. So if you've already recorded it, make a copy of it, and then the next time you resync, you're going to be overwriting the previous months of data. So if you're only syncing back from January 1st to January 31st, great. But what you want to do is you want to actually compare and have data sets. So we're probably looking at some point this year, maybe in a few months, of making it so you can actually kind of capture like what's happened. So you want to do a capture, save it, and then you want to be able to resync it and go, what has changed? Because like Kim says, sometimes programs are changing data. I think they're changing it for good reasons, but it could also be for bad reasons. Like, again, we don't want to always talk about shaving, but sometimes what they're doing is they're saying, well, maybe they have chargebacks and they've got chargeback reports, or sometimes those chargebacks need like a week for them to reconcile. And we have some customers that basically say they don't do this process until the 15th because they have one program that the last time they reconcile their own data before they say it's ready to go in the backend is as late as the 15th. So it really depends on how many programs you're working with and how many actually will say, hey, when do they close off their dates? Something we know of, but we don't really have in a standard report or a data set. But maybe that will be a great feedback and coming soon. So I want to say, Joe, thanks a lot for doing this. I've learned a few things, even though this is our own product, but it's always great to be able to ask the dumb questions for you and kind of, more importantly, like what you said, it's we're lucky that the more customers we get to talk to, we just learn quite a bit. So from our point of view, what we think we're good at is, we're just kind of like picking up the best practices of what other affiliates are doing. So we don't see their data, but we see clever ways of how they use tracking links, how they use different reports. And this even comes full circle into us building custom database reports. So yeah, if you want help with dynamic variables, we're here. And I'll pass it back to you, Joe, for last comments.
No, perfect. Thank you very much, guys. Excuse me. Yeah, fighting the cough here. if anybody does have follow-up questions, joe@statsdrone.com, you'll be able to find me.
All right, thanks very much. I'm going to hit end stream. And everyone, this is being recorded, so you've got a copy of this forever, and we'll definitely have more